time every day, 365 Sports, and we'll start with Texas Tech. After that near disastrous loss to Abilene Christian, there were some red flags. Then they got smoked in Pullman by Washington State. They bounced back to Mall, North Texas, had the win against Arizona State, had the shootout win against Cincinnati. They're 4-1, and they're on the road in Tucson against Arizona. And we start with Texas Tech. Paul?
Yeah, I think this one can have, probably going to have a lot of points scored in it. These are two pretty good offenses here. I'm curious to see Tech go win on the road against a good team. They've got to start doing that. They've got to start doing it consistently. Lubbock is a great place for them to play, but you can't play all 12 there, and they've improved on that over the last couple of years, but this is a big opportunity to do that. I don't think the defense is going to be all of a sudden better, but if they can get some red zone stops, and then like at the end of the game the other day, Cincinnati scored with 4 minutes left and they didn't let them score again. So do those in key spots and the team's going to be a lot better. You're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, a lot of what you said is valid. They didn't let them score at the very end because Cincinnati missed a field goal to tie the game. They should have made that to send it to overtime. But then again, should they have made a 51-yard field goal in college? Probably not. That's not very often. So fortunately for Tech, that was a tough kick, and it was missed, and they were able to hold on to that victory, but not in any way taking that away from them. What has been in their control, they've done pretty well with. I think Baron Morton's getting better. I think that Taj Brooks is obviously awesome and just continues to do his thing. As it's almost maddening to watch from the other side. It's like, tackle a guy, and he just keeps breaking tackles and making guys miss, and he's just a real joy, and getting him back this year was a huge feather in the cap of Joey McGuire and company. But to have Baron Morton coming along and progressing is obviously a great sign. They've got a top, I think it's 15, if not 10 total offense in the country. So they're zooming on that side of the football, and I think feeling pretty good about the state of things. Can always get better, of course, but they're in a good spot there. Defensively, they're playing a lot of young guys, and that's kind of the thing you're hanging your cap on is, it's not always pretty and it's not always good, but it's going to be there eventually if all these young guys keep getting experience, and then they're around for another year, 2 years, and eventually this thing will really be moving on that side of the football as well. But there are definitely question marks still on that side of the football. And you gave up 41 to Cincinnati. Like, they gave up 44, but you also gave up 41. And I think that both teams can still feel okay about that, because if you're Cincinnati, you went into Lubbock and you put 41 on them and had a chance to tie it and send it to overtime at the end without two of your better running backs for a majority of that game. So I don't know if the game plays out differently if they have, Kiner in particular, but Texas Tech knocked him out of the game. Like, that's part of the game. And so what a shootout and what a great win for Texas Tech. But like Paul said, they've got to go do it on the road now. They played 5 games, 4 of them at home. The one game they played on the road, they lost to Washington State pretty convincingly. So I'm not saying anything that they're not saying. Joey McGuire said it throughout the offseason. They've got to win on the road to be the program they want to be. So here's a great test. Arizona's slightly favored. I think this is a toss-up game, and I'm just very curious on whether Tech is going to be like the next team to give up 300 yards receiving to Tetero and McMillan, or if they're going to, be able to limit that and not let Fafita and T-Mac, get them into a shootout that they're not able to win. But they feel comfortable in shootouts, that's for sure. They score a lot of points.
Yeah, they've scored 52, 66, 30, and 44. Of course, they did not play well, and Washington State thumped them pretty good. A 10 o'clock kick.
Yeah,
10
that's
o'clock
a huge
kick
thing
in
here.
Tucson. And you really wonder, you hear about like teams on the West Coast or BYU moving, coming east and playing at a different time. That's late in the day on Fox, though. So it's going to be a great day. Big 12, Arizona hosting Texas Tech.
I think you really love what you've gotten from Josh Kelly. He's been a terrific pickup for you. He's leading the way for you. Coy Eakin's getting better as well. Caleb Douglas, they've got a really nice receiving core. Obviously, they're scoring a lot of points. You got Brooks, you got Morton getting better as he gets more mature and older and experienced. So, yeah, they feel comfortable in a shootout, but the defense has to keep coming along. And I do wonder, just in terms of, as much as Jeff Long was a fraud running the college football playoff committee in the early days because they were clearly throwing crap at the wall to justify their selections, like body clocks, if you want to rewind to that point in time.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't a valid reason to keep teams out of the playoff, which is what the kind of crap they tried to no, 12 teams is too much. That's part of the reason why we needed 12 teams, because that kind of gatekeeping BS that was going on from the very get-go in the college football playoff, anyways, that wasn't valid for those reasons. It's a valid thing to say in this game when Texas playing 10 o'clock at night. Like, that's going to screw up your body clock. So I wonder to what degree it does. I don't think it should be the difference in them winning or losing per se, but it is an interesting, part of this game is just how late this thing kicks off.
What would be harder, to go play a game at a different time zone later or to go play a game at a different time zone, to me, earlier? I would think would be heading east would be more difficult.
I say all coaches always say the same thing. They want to get up and play football.
Yeah.
They don't want to sit around in
Dave
the hotel.
Aranda
That's
said
the
that
Provo
last week,
thing.
yeah.
The Provo thing is not even just that it's all these crazy fans and the whiteouts and the cougar tails and, all the accoutrements that a BYU home game has, the late kickoff. Like, all of that matters, and it has rattled more teams than it hasn't. But I think the biggest advantage is that everybody that goes and plays in those games says the same thing. We're sitting in the hotel for like 10 hours waiting for this game to start, just killing time waiting for this game to start. And then it finally starts, like, after all this all-day-long wait. That is also part of the advantage. So, yeah, I think everybody would probably, except for Kalani Sitake, would love to just get up and play football. But, yeah, 10 o'clock is abnormal even for after dark standards, especially in the Big 12.
So Texas Tech at Arizona, then they are back home against Baylor in a couple of weeks.
And if they win, they go into the bye week at 5-1. You're 3-0 in the Big 12. You've got your road win that's been so elusive. That would be a substantial road win against a really good team, and one that can hurt you offensively when your questions marks are on defense. So however you find a way to win that game would be a big deal. You'd be favored against Baylor with 2 weeks to prepare at home again. So, yeah, it's a big game if they can win it.
Houston is not who's on this pod, but they're hosting a team. In fact, TCU, who got maybe right with the win against KU last week, 38-27. Hoover's putting up big numbers. They got spanked by UCF, and then SMU bludgeoned them and hurt their feelings, as you can imagine. It's TCU, guys, on the pod clock.
Well, they better win this week, and they got right last week against Kansas. And, defense still isn't very good, but Houston's just a total mess right now. So they should absolutely take care of business in this game.
Yeah, it was a really nice win for Josh Hoover and company. He's a really good player, and you wondered after the loss the week prior, just things felt like they were, if you pulled a thread, it might all unravel, and clearly that's not the case because they rebounded well. That was a closer game than the 11-point score showed in the end because that was a tight game all the way into the fourth quarter, and they were able to outscore the Jayhawks 10-3 in that final frame to take a lead and hold on to it, but that was a very back-and-forth game. Still think TCU has their issues, but Josh Hoover's going to give them a chance with his throwing ability. So long as they can kind of complement that here and there. There's still major questions about Andy Avalos and that new defense of his, but I don't think that's going to come into play this week. So, yeah, they should beat Houston. They're nearly 20-point favorites, so this game's not really one that needs a real big breakdown. But if they weren't able to take care of their business, that would obviously be very interesting.
As a nice win, though, they had to get that game, and don't you know, the week after getting smothered by SMU had to have been very difficult. Oklahoma State 3-2, but 0-2 to open up conference play. The Cowboys are on the road. No, excuse me, they're at home against West Virginia. 3:00 start, ESPN2.
Oklahoma State, they're. Like I said before, we went into this the other day when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, you've already done your Oklahoma State segment.
They're in this every other year roller coaster, and this is the bad time of that. So, they don't have a good quarterback play. They don't have a good defense. They're not getting the ball in Ollie Gordon's hands early and often enough. When you fall behind, he's out of the game, kind of essentially anyway. They can't keep down this path. This is a team that looks like a 7-5 team to me right now. Like, they have some good things. They have some really good wide receivers, but they have a quarterback who's a below 50% passer. And they knew that going in. And it's going to be a big this from me every week with Oklahoma State from here on out, because if they can block well and run the ball well and keep Alan Bowman from having to throw 50 passes, they're going to be in the game. If all those things don't happen, then they're going to get stroked like they did last week.
Yeah, they're a bit of a mess. I don't sense that Mike Gundy's really panicking. I mean, he's seen anything and everything at this point, so I think that's a saving grace is you have a guy like that running the program who's not going to be caught off, guard or is going to be, frazzled by their struggles. I think he'll keep a steady beat that'll aid them well. But, yeah, they just simply have to play better. Alan Bowman hasn't played well enough a lot of the time. Ollie Gordon, he approached 100 yards last week, approached 80 more than 100, but, there was a little something there, but it's clearly not at all what anybody anticipated or thought heading into this season. The O-line clearly was a bit overrated coming into this season, and I like their receivers a lot. I think there's definitely something there with DeJon Stribling and players like that. Like, they clearly have some talent in the passing game, but the rest of the offense has just been a bit too much of a mess. And Bowman's turnovers, he could throw for 400 yards, but a couple picks here and there, a fumble. He had all three, I think, last week. That's gonna kill you in conference play. So, that's just the offense. The defense has been a mess too. So it's weird. They're somehow good enough to probably win every game, and I guess this is life in the Big 12. Also lose every game if they don't play their best. And Bowman's turning it over. So yeah, they're in a weird spot. Like this game, I feel like they should win this at home, but at the same time, I don't know how good they really are. Like I can't tell because it's so up and down.
West Virginia is more consistent, although they have their issues. This game here with Oklahoma State, they can't be erratic.
No.
Against them. No.
I mean, they can't afford to lose this game. Then you go to Provo.
Yep.
And then you'll be on the road in Waco. And I know Baylor's easy to dunk on right now, but they're in these games, fellas. Like, it's like a bad quarter. And I know that's every game. Like, if two plays here, but Baylor can beat anybody in this league. Like, don't think this is like old school 1990s Baylor where they're just atrocious. It's like they just can't finish or start well, but in between they're pretty good. So Oklahoma State needs to win this game because there's no guarantees, and you got to take advantage of the ones you have at home. So I would definitely favor them in this game, but both these teams are just so kind of weird. Like, who the hell knows what to expect here?
All right, so there we are with that. Now we go to Baylor. You just mentioned them. They'll play Oklahoma State here in a couple of 3 weeks. And on the road against Iowa State, we are asked every week by Levi to give a prediction. I look at this game. If Iowa State does just kind of what they do, I think they'll just kind of like eventually they'll just control the game 30-12, something like that. I have no idea. I'm not good about scores. But I kind of feel like I have a pretty good read of this team. They surely can't turn the ball over. They're going to need, to me, a defensive, pick six, but Iowa State doesn't do that. They're going to need to score in other ways. Not that the offense hasn't been productive, but I just don't know how the time of possession in this game could wear them out.
Yeah, I'll just keep it to this and don't need to expound any further. This is what I wrote back in the for the website. Iowa State is efficient. Baylor is not. Okay. That's why I think Iowa State wins this game.
Yeah, I think Iowa State wins this game as well. I had this circled as a loss before knowing really what Baylor was going to look like, but having seen what they look like, I just don't have confidence in them to be dynamic enough on offense to do what it's going to take to beat an Iowa State in Ames with their new special uniforms and all the excitement, and again I'll use the word accoutrements surrounding this game. I would definitely pick Iowa State every game in the Big 12, but especially as it applies to Baylor, I think they could win. But I don't see it this week, and that's going to be interesting to probably head into the bye week at 2-4. I know that'll only raise the voices of the anti-Dave Aranda detractors. I would just say to you, like, what the hell good does it do right now? Like, what good does it do to fire him right this moment? It's not saving the recruiting class. It's not holding anything together. It's just throwing up the white flag with over half the season to play. But quitters are going to quit. So I'm not going to do that. I think this team's still got a lot in front of them, but I just don't think it's going to be any kind of a rally that starts this weekend. It's just not consisting of the things that I think you need to be consisting of to go up to Ames and win this game, in my opinion.
One quick note, because we got to get to Off the Radar, and we have a guest at 5:10 and 5:30, but this is a team this year that at least gives you some oomph. They still lose, but this isn't losing 26-6. This isn't getting beat, at least not yet, like 30-10. Now, Utah almost started that, and eventually it was a fairly competitive game down the stretch. But they're giving you some glimpses of things. The problem is they can't put all three phases together at one time.
The problem is you can't do that week after week after week, because then it's like, then you're just an almost team, like J.J. Joe said. And it's like, yeah, you're almost good enough, but you're never, it doesn't matter if you wait another year or another 2 years. That doesn't mean you're ever going to not be almost and cross that line. So they got to cross that line. This would be a great week to do it. I think it's entirely possible, but I don't have faith in them at this point. I already used up all of my faith tokens with them during these first few weeks, and they crushed it with the BYU outcome last week. My faith has been put to the side for right now.
Put to sleep. All right,
I just don't have it now.
I don't think a lot of people do, and that's why again. The football team, take out the outside noise, go do your job, make some plays, make key plays, kick a field goal when there's an opportunity to separate, or knock down a damn pass or whatever. But, oh well, they play in Ames this weekend.